That's like 2 years ago. So how was your experience like applying to a DrPH program?
For full disclosure, because it's on my LinkedIn as well, I applied twice before I got into the program. I got into the program my second application, and actually the first application, I actually put my rejection letter on LinkedIn,
Mm-hmm.
and I got a lot of support and just a lot of love from the community. But it was very important to show that these things are really hard.
Yeah.
And it really doesn't have much sometimes to do with whether you are deserving of it or not, or you're qualified or not.
Mm-hmm.
Mine literally came down to um, someone, my last interviewer asking me what the value of Harvard was to me at that time. And I actually didn't understand his question, because I'm like, I'm an African woman who is trying to do this work. What do you mean? What's the value of Harvard to me? But he couldn't see it, and that was the only difference. And he saw somebody else as capable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, well, 2 years ago, the application, in my experience, and I know it's changed this year from friends who have gotten an acceptance into the program, into this new cohort. So you would do the full through SOFAS, usual. This, yeah.
Yes, yes.
You do the full application, the usual standard questionnaire, and then they would ask you to not necessarily write an essay, but to answer like three main questions. And then after you'd write your three main questions, you would write an additional letter of intent that would stipulate like who you are and all of that stuff. And then there were, for Harvard, I don't know if it's the same for John Hopkins, but we did three virtual interviews, so pre-recorded interviews. This is
Mm-hmm.
before you submit. So you've done like three questions, you've written your letter of intent, and then you do three 2-minute interviews that you record.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's part of your application, and it goes through. And of course, if you have a non-US degree, you go through what's this? Do you remember what it's called? Anyway, you go through a verification.
West evaluation or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And about 100 and something dollars. That's an additional
Mm-hmm.
layer on top of your application. So at the end of it, you're spending about $300, right? Just to apply. So that goes in, and it goes in the 1st of December. Um, yeah, Harvard sometimes, I think, does people a favor and gives them an extra week. I don't know if I should be saying this. Sometimes they say, "Oh, we're done by not 3 days,"
Yeah.
you just never know, you might have those 3 days, but usually it's December 1st. And then the first week of January, I got a call on both times that I applied, being notified that I was invited for an interview. So the first layer of interview is to assess, it's just to cut, it's to cut the first set of applicants.
Oh, yeah.
um, and I did that. I didn't know at the time this was going to happen. I'm like, I've already interviewed. I've sent 3 videos. What more do you want? But I did that first interview. Actually, it happened the first time I applied. I was in Sierra Leone. I was having a good time. I think I was like at a restaurant, and I did the interview.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I got called for another interview. And the second interview now is really where I think anyone who gets the second interview should feel very proud of themselves. It means that all of us can get into Harvard. It's just a matter now of figuring out, who are the best people to work together. So Harvard's DrPH program, the T-Chan School's DrPH program, is a cohort-based learning. So
Mm-hmm.
what they try to do is bring different people, different profiles that they feel will learn the best from each other, will bring out the best of each other, and to journey through the DrPH program. So you
Yeah.
really get close to that cohort, and you really you get to you get to go through that journey with them. So they have to figure out who are the best personalities and experiences that will come together. And so that second interview is, people go back to the drawing board and they make a case for who they feel is a worthy candidate and will fit really well with other
Mm-hmm.
students' profiles. So the year I applied for 2021, so I'll start in 2022. I didn't get in. Sorry, 2020 to start in 2021. I didn't get in, but I made the first two interviews. The second time I applied, I also made the two interviews, and then I got
Mm-hmm.
accepted for 2022. So that was the process. It was long. It was expensive.
Yeah.
Three, about $300. About 4 essays, three mini video interviews, and two in-person interviews, and then the acceptance. This year I heard that they actually just did one interview, but with two people. which I don't know how that works if it's different, but that was the rigor of my journey.
Yeah, yeah. And so you made mention that the first time it didn't quite work out, but the second time it worked out. Do you know whether there's something specific that you did differently in your second application that you think might have tilted the table, or as you said, it's mainly because it was a cohort kind of decision, and this time around you were a good fit for the cohort?
I think it might be the latter because, at the time, the person that interviewed me is a very powerful professor, by the way. He's been like Secretary of State Health or whatever. It's a very,
Mm-hmm.
very influential person in the Harvard community and in the US context, right? He's a
Mm-hmm.
powerhouse. I was very honored to meet him. But his question to me, based on my CV and my letter, was, what is the value of Harvard to you at this point in your life? What are you going to gain from this program? And clearly, the answer I gave him wasn't sufficient. He didn't think I was right for the cohort.
Yeah.
My takeaway was, are you saying I'm too qualified, or are you saying I don't know what you mean? But because in the second interview, the second year, I had left UNICEF I chose not to continue my career in Geneva, and I took up a role in as a fellow. I went from a staff member to
Mm-hmm.
a fellow at the African Development Bank in the office of the president. And so when I applied this time around, I had that experience, and I didn't even ask the president for a reference. Honestly, my
Mm-hmm.
reference was very it was just, I don't know, someone, I don't remember who.
Yeah.
Um, and so actually my profile looked stronger, right? Because I'd had more experience. And but this time I had two people who were just like, who are you? Like, because the questions are not what do you know. They don't because they know everyone is smart. They've looked at your CV, they've looked at your transcripts, they've looked at who you are, they've looked at your social media. Like, they can get, things. But the questions that they ask is, who are you? And what can you bring to this program? And what remains, what potential remains untapped into? And the people that interviewed me this year, I felt like that year, I felt like they saw me. I felt like they understood my hunger. I felt like they really understood my story. And this is why, for anyone that doesn't get in, I keep saying, it's not you.
Yeah.
It's who you're connecting with. It literally is that person on the other side. Do they see me? Do they understand me? And if they do, are they going to fight for me versus you, right?
Yeah.
When you go into that room to make that decision.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think that's very true. There are instances where you see uh, candidates who are extremely have a extremely compelling story and a CV, and they apply one particular year, no offer. The next year they get a lot of offers. So as you said, it's not an indication that you're not good enough for the program. It's just that some of these small issues. All right. So did you consider applying to any other DRPH program, or in your research, uh, which DRPH programs were you considering?
None. I like, when I was applying for my master's, I just applied to Oxford only. I
Mm-hmm.
remember going to, at the time, a very prominent mentor, and like, this is the only school I'm applying to, and she's like, who does that? Who did they say no? And I was like, yeah, 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 it's the only school. And so for Harvard, the first year it was only Harvard I applied to, and I didn't get
Mm-hmm.
in. The second year, I started to look at the University of Toronto because they just opened there. I think everyone should actually look at the University of Toronto.